special guest with us today, and I will read her bio, but I just have to say, before I do, this is a woman that walks her talk. From the moment I met her, gosh, probably 20 years ago, I was so impressed with how centered she was, how connected she was to spirit, and how she just listened to spirit and did what she felt called to do. And, of course, I'm calling on you to make donations if you can, and follow your heart and follow spirit. And our next guest today is the Reverend Janet Nohavec. And again, from the minute I met her, I was so impressed with her ability to have a vision and to set things in motion and to be led by spirit. So she's going to join us in just a couple of minutes. So we have just a few minutes for you to keep donating. Please don't stop donating. Just keep donating. And again, she's just a wonderful woman that I'm just so privileged to have met and have been able to visit online. I'm sure a lot of you have gone to different places online. So let me tell you a little bit about Reverend Janet Nohavec. Janet is internationally known for her evidential mediumship. She is an approved overseas tutor for the prestigious Arthur Findlay College in Stansted, England. Janet has been recognized as a pioneer in the field of mediumship and afterlife communication. And for over 30 years, she has stood for the proof of continuity of life before it was popular. Over 10,000 private sessions, over 1,000 public demonstrations of mediumship, and countless charity events. Few mediums have her knowledge bases and compassion. And that's so true. She is a former Roman Catholic nun. I'm getting a little choked up because I'm so impressed with her. She has been featured exclusively on television, radio, and in the printed press. Her evidential form of mediumship has been researched by several university groups. Janet's private practice and church are based in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. Janet is also an author, and one of her books is called Through the Darkness, and her autobiography, Where Two Worlds Meet, is a book on the development of mediumship. And so you can find out more about Janet by going to her website, Janet Nohavec, Nohavec, janetnohavec.com. So Janet is here to give us a presentation on her efforts to restore the Fox Sisters' original schoolhouse. So I'm so delighted to introduce and present our friend, Janet Nohavec.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful to be with you here. In a little bit, I'm going to attempt to share a screen. So it worked an hour and a half again, so I'm hoping I can do it. Lovely to be with you all. This is congratulations to all of you for pulling off this really massive endeavor. I know how much work this takes, so it's fantastic. And I just make my donation, so I'll be sharing that on all of our pages as well. So really very worthy project and fantastic programming. So I'll tell you how I got involved with the schoolhouse. I'm probably an unlikely spiritualist. I know there's a book, The Unlikely Martyrs, but I was probably an unlikely spiritualist, a former Roman Catholic nun. Saw spirit as a child, didn't know what it was, petrified of it because we saw my grandfather who committed suicide. And of course, in the Catholic faith, that meant they were doomed to roam the earth, dragging their chained ankles for all of eternity. And how sad that is that anyone would say that. And my very superstitious mother, who figured if he's turning up, it can't be good, this grandfather. So after I left the convent, I met a medium, and that medium directed me to Lilydale, where I went. And I read the book, The Rock of Truth, from Arthur Findlay, which I felt was this is heresy. This book is heresy. I shouldn't read this book. This is scandalous, you know. Oh my God, what's God going to say about this? And, you know, it began an eye-opening journey that I think was part of the story. And I actually think being a Roman Catholic nun was part of the story, because there are a lot of people who will come to me that would not approach any of this if I didn't have that as part of the history. From there, began to develop my mediumship. Was told by the Lilydale medium that I was to go to England, not to develop here. So that actually came from someone in Lilydale, a registered medium who's passed away now. And never flew, found my way to England. And I actually think it's all part of a story, because, you know, a couple of years ago, as we began the First World Congress in Lilydale, it was an attempt to bring the world back together for right reasons, you know, for all of us, because we won't survive if we don't stick together. It's really important. Started my church in New Jersey, associated to the Spiritualist National Union, which felt like the right decision. And I still think that's all part of the plan too. And it thrived, you know, mostly because of a man who received a message from his deceased daughter, and it changed his very staunch Catholic beliefs to believing that she still visits him and hears him and visits, and, you know, takes him sometimes to visit with her. And he gave us $500,000 to build the church we're in here in New Jersey. And that was going along fine. And I have my house in Lilydale, and everything was great. And many of you remember and still know Ann Gaiman. And probably 25 years ago, Ann Gaiman said, you know, there's a little schoolhouse right up the street from the Hydesville Cottage. You don't want to get involved in that. And I said, no, Ann, no, I don't think that's part of my story, Ann. Nope, don't want to get involved with the schoolhouse. And then years passed, I have to say, and years passed, and I always wanted a retreat house. I always wanted a retreat house. I wanted a spiritualist retreat house. So I prayed, and I would travel and look, throw it outside the Lilydale gates, and years had gone on. And when we did the first Congress, we planted a little tree. All of us that came from the other organizations, Cozy Allen was there, Stephen Upton was there. There was a whole busload of us at the Fox property, and there's a sapling that's planted there that day to kind of reinvigorate spiritualism. And it's thriving. Thank God the tree is thriving, because I've kept an eye on it, I have to say. And while I was there, probably a couple months, I went back to check on the tree. And I'm still praying, you know, where should I look for the retreat house? And I took a picture. I'm going to try and do this. I hope to God it works. I took a picture of something that I saw inside the cottage. And if you're a nun, you're into signs. Nuns look for signs. And very Polish girls like me, we look for signs too. So I'm just going to try and hopefully get this so I can share it. So I took a picture, and in the photo from the cottage, it's a picture of the wreath that was put in the Fox cottage. Ugh, I'll try again to get it up. It's a picture of a wreath, and I'll try and get it up for you. And it's got an impression of an image of almost a man next to the wreath. But the image, and this is an all glass enclosure, I have to say, is of not the wreath, and then almost a lit up aspect of a man shape that has the pathway in the rear. So somehow there's a superimposition of something that shouldn't be in the photo. And I said, oh, that's kind of odd. And when I open all the photos, then I'll make sure you see them. I was like, that's kind of odd. That's some sort of, almost looks like Andrew Jackson Davis to me. And I was like, that's really odd. So I was up for a couple days up in that way, and still praying. I need a sign. I really could use a sign, you know. And I came back the next day, and above the Fox cottage, an airplane had made a big X in the sky. And I've got a picture of that here too. And I'm saying, well, you can't get much clearer than that. Big X in the sky above the Fox cottage. And, you know, I said, that's really interesting. And the girl who had the schoolhouse, who had purchased it at auction from the town, had wanted to make this a spiritualist place. She is a spiritualist. She's local. She's still involved. She's a lovely woman named Ruth. And she called me out of the blue, you know, 20 years later, probably, than Ann Gaiman had talked to me and said, if you don't do something with this building as a spiritualist center, it's going to become a bar or an antique center. And because I had the signs, I prayed harder. And I said, well, if I can find someone to give us the money, because I don't have it, we'll do it. And didn't someone come with the money to purchase the schoolhouse? So I said, well, this is interesting. Now, I had taken a really ramshackled house in Lilydale and turned it into a beautiful house. So I know you can rehab almost anything. So I said, went home, I said, I wonder if there's a church for sale in Newark, New York. And isn't there a little church for sale in Newark, New York? And I said, wouldn't it be good to have a spiritualist church back in Newark, New York? And we could use, once the schoolhouse is turned into a healing temple, we can use the church as well. And Mavis Patilla comes into the story at that time, because we used to make our road trips up to Lilydale, and we always passed the Fox Cottage. And so we started to pray at the schoolhouse, and we went over to the property where the church was for sale. It was a very Christian man. We weren't sure that this was going to go through. We actually put a couple things on the property, superstitious as we are, hoping to bring it to us. And didn't they accept the offer? And didn't someone give us the money for the down payment to the church in Newark, New York? So we're just kind of the worker bees for a bigger project that I think the spirit world has in mind. And that's what we're doing for the promulgation of the religion of spiritualism, and for no other reason. So we went back again. We were probably on our way back from Lilydale to New Jersey, and we stopped at the property, and the pastor was there. And we went into the basement, and we talked to him for a moment, and Mavis was there. And I said, would you like to pray? So we all joined hands with this very Christian pastor and his wife. And we didn't know at that moment, but he was dying. And the last thing that took place was he was buried from our church now in Newark, New York. We allowed him to hold the services. So that takes us to where we are. So I'm going to begin to attempt to, once I get the hang of it, it'll go quicker. So we purchased the property, the schoolhouses. So we got the schoolhouse, the sale went through. We decided, we sent someone to check the foundation because we weren't going to take it if the foundation was completely unstable. That was checked. The basement part was in good stead. So we went ahead. We also felt that if you couldn't put a bathroom on the property, which was very important and still is, it would change the scheme of the development of the plan greatly. So we hired an engineer who sent out, to do whatever they do in the ground testing. We've been very involved with conversation with the local code officials because we want to be. So he said, so we hired the engineer who did the ground test, and a septic system was approved. The first thing we did was hire a mason for $38,000 to shore up the decay of the walls that were crumbling, big holes in the sides and such. And then once that was done, it was suggested we tend to the roof, which had the potential for collapse, which would then stop interior destruction of the building. So we did the roof. All along, we're doing small fundraisers, big fundraisers, any fundraisers, GoFundMe pages, anything we could. And just kept saying this it'll cost for this, and this is what it'll cost for that. We have a wonderful relationship with a lot of American and British mediums who have really stepped up to our plate. So we got the roof done. We then got the, someone did not do us a favor at the schoolhouse because I believe in 1960, someone attempted to put a second floor apartment in, which we thought was going to be great for us. But as time went on, the height was not big enough to sustain from the code official in town a second floor apartment. So that is not going to be able to be used. It'll be finished off, but it's not going to be able to be an apartment. So that changed that scheme of things on that. But because he put it in there, to rip it out would have brought the walls in. So we've had to allow that to remain where it is. So as we've gone along, we've hit different things. So we finished the dormer windows. We finished the casing where the bell was, and that looked quite good. We then went to order new windows. There's new doors. The plans are now we've encountered people that will not come back to the project. We've had an engineer who came to make sure the property was stable, what kind of beams I would need to put up to keep it stable when people enter. When he found out we were spiritualists, he wouldn't come back to the job site. We've had contractors who've come out to bid it, who found out we were spiritualists, who won't come back. So still in the area, there are those who are not in support of what we do, or are spooked. It is what it is. We've been as honest with everybody as we go, and maybe they're not the right contractor. So we've just got to look at it that way. And I'm an optimist, and so it is. But we have encountered that quite a bit there, I have to say. The press has been great to us up there. So the last thing we've done now, nope, that's not true. The septic system was installed. That's been put in. There was a massive amount of old growth trees, unhealthy, encroaching in the foundation of the building. So that's been all taken down now. We are at final architect plans for the development of the remainder of the project, detailed completely inside. It cannot be an establishment where 100 people are going to park a car. They won't allow it to go forward. So anything we've had to do to adjust to scale for it to be appropriate is what we've done. Because there, as anyone knows, you can't put a building, that's very small and say you're going to park 1,000 cars there. They're not going to pass it. So we want a spiritualist structure there. So we've scaled it to what it should appear to be like. It will be a healing temple. And everything on it will be in honor of the pioneers of spiritualism. And it will be done beautifully as it's finished. So final architectural plans are due within 2 weeks. They will go for sign off to the town, which I don't think we will have an issue with. They will issue a permit based on how much more it will cost us. I originally thought that this would cost $225 to $250. We're now at $325 probably. We've raised $147,000. We're on the verge, and I'm not going to say anything about it, of the potential of someone significantly helping with some of the costs that remain. But because we've done what we've done so far, I have no doubt we're going to complete this project. It just, every week there's a couple different demonstrations. Sunday night, there was a demonstration with James Van Prague and myself. Nobody takes any money. I mean, even big names have helped us with this. That brought in $4,000. Suzanne Giesman, who wrote my book, did a trance demonstration that it brought in $16,000 in 2 hours. I mean, there are people stepping up for this in the right, you know, it makes me want to cry. They're doing it for the right reason. And a massive amount of people have done that, you know, over and over and over. And, you know, they'll do another one. We contacted a trance medium who is not a spiritualist. But I said, well, there could be some trance mediums that aren't spiritualists. And he knew who we were. And he did one, and that was $9,000 that came in. So, you know, people have been really willing to help. And it's really just for kind of a breath in the area to renew spiritualism. And my hopes are that someday, you know, in that region, I hope before I pass to the spirit world, you know, when Highsville Day comes, there's going to be thousands of people there. That's my hope in the area again. The third sign is, when I was a Catholic nun, I used to be very devoted to St. Teresa, the Little Flower. And she's the one with the roses in her arms. So I said, well, dear God, it'd be really good if I had another sign as I'm doing this. And I stayed at the Newark Garden Hotel, and the man behind the counter there is a real chatterbox, I have to say. He used to actually own the other property on the corner. That is the other corner where Fox Cottage is. He's a lawyer. I came in and we got to talking about the area. He said, you don't know a lot about it. And I said, except, you know, for Hinesville. He said, well, do you know that we were one of the biggest exporters of roses in the United States to the world? And I was like, oh my God, another sign. So if you're not into signs, you're not going to like my story, but call me crazy, I don't care. So I'm going to try and share some of the pictures. Pray for me while I try and do this. I think I have to do that. Maybe Robin can answer me. Do I share screen first, or do I put the picture up from the bottom first?
Let me help you, guide you through it. All right. So are your pictures up on your computer?
My pictures are all lined up along the bottom.
Okay. They should be visible to you on your desktop or screen itself before you do a share screen.
I'm just trying to move this one over so I can see my share screen again.
Okay.
Let me just try and minimize this. And then I'll just go to all pictures, everybody.
Okay.
I'm going to minimize this.
So once you hit the share screen button, you have to highlight you know, what you want to share on your desktop, and then hit the little blue share screen button that's in the right bottom corner.
Okay, so this is the first one that I'll put up, and this is the one with the shadow next to the wreath that was left by one of the celebrations of the Congress there. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Great.
so I don't know how that little piece of the path that is not in the building ends up in the building, but if you enlarge this in a certain way, to me, we kept taking pictures, I have to say, of it. I'm saying, how the hell does that get in there? So that was my first sign, I have to say. I find these very interesting. I hope you do. So now there's just going to be random pictures as I try to do this. I'm sure there's other people that are much better than this. So as many of you know, there was a school on the property before this property, which dates to 1879. We also believe on this property, there was a little Methodist church on the schoolhouse grounds. So this, of course, will stay up in the corner of the property. You're seeing that one too, right? I think if it's highlighted green, I know you see it. I hope you're patient with me. So when I first walked inside the building, I have to say, you really couldn't walk in. This is the trees all being taken down, which needed to be taken down, particularly along the back, because that's going to provide us with 10 parking spots along the back into the quarry. Many of you know there's a quarry that's right there. So the way we can add the most pieces of parking is behind the place. There'll be a couple additional on the side. So, you know, we've had to provide that on the specs to the town. So hence the trees needed to come down, and they really were a threat to the building itself. So if you walk in most places of the building, you'll fall through the floor, still at the moment. This next one is the septic, part of the septic that was installed. So 2 bathrooms and a shower will be in it, which is fantastic. This is my X in the sky above Fox Cottage. When I say, where should I make my retreat house? So first there's the thing inside the cottage, then there's the X above the Fox Cottage. And then the man tells me, and I have a love of roses in St. Teresa, this town is known for the roses. And I was, you know, it just, to me, it just, certain things just say do it. This is more septic systems. So that wasn't a small project, which then ruined the whole lawn, which we've now had reseeded, I have to say. One gentleman helped, well, like I said, the money to purchase came from one gentleman who also gave us the deposit for the Newark church, spiritual church now that has, which is, like many of your churches, been closed for the pandemic. This is inside at the minute. This is what it looks like inside at the minute. This next one is, there were a lot of squatters in the 60s in this property, and they built this little stove thing. That's how they were heating themselves in there. Someone did go as far to put a furnace in the bottom. The man that put the apartment upstairs did put a hot water heater. There's a very small basement, which we've been advised not to touch because the foundation at that level is in really good shape. But there's been a lot of squatters in this property over the years. The really interesting part is some of the original blackboards are still inside, and we will keep some of that. On the outside of the building, in the original bricks, all along the side, little kids with either pebbles or little nails have written their initials into all the bricks. So I mean, this building could tell a story just like the other one could, I have to say, I'm sure. This was when the roof was done and the cupolas were done upstairs. And then where the bell was, we decided the bell would not go back in there. We do have the bell. It was kept by the woman who bought the property, who also preserved a really, really old map of the region and a few other artifacts. You know, it was hoped, and I'm just going to raise this here. You never know someday, because I'd be happy when I'm done with this to start a fundraiser for the Fox Cottage to start a museum. And I'm sure I could enlist a lot of my friends to help you guys build a museum over on that piece of property. So in the name of spiritualism. So I'd be happy to help on that effort. There won't be room here. There'll be a pioneer's wall, you know, so to keep it in scope with the size of the property, we know the town won't approve a museum unless we took that little garage and did something down the road. But, you know, you guys have a lot of property over there, so maybe. And finally, we got new doors, new windows downstairs. So before that, anything could have gone in there and encroached it. So there's finally, we've got keys to the building, and the windows, new windows have been put in. So step by step, inch by inch, I have to say it's moved along. That's where we are with it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take it. There's probably a few more pictures down there, but I'm not so good at putting it in a PowerPoint. So I don't know if you would like to take a few questions, if anybody has any, Carol.
Sure. Does everyone know how to raise your hand? You go to the reactions button, and at the bottom there's something that says raise your hand. If you raise your hand, you'll float to the top and we'll see you. How far is the schoolhouse from the Fox Cottage?
Really, probably if we lined up 15 cars parked bumper to bumper, you would touch it, I would think. It's the best way I could explain it. It's probably like, you know, somebody would know exactly how many feet, but in my envisioning of it, you know. Mavis Patilla, I have to say, has been a great backbone in this project as well as many other people, but she is so on board. Her and Jean, I have to say, they're enthralled with this project and have been really tirelessly helpful as well. We have a talk coming up in 2 weeks, and you know, every couple months we're doing something for the schoolhouse, but everybody is, I really have to say, so many people have come together for this project. We are definitely looking ahead at how to leave this, so once it's established, how it will continue to pay for itself, so it will remain what it is for hopefully a long time into the future as well. So
Cozy.
Cozy has, hi Cozy.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk and talking about the schoolhouse. I would say the schoolhouse is across the street, maybe three at the most 4 blocks up that street. It's very close. You can see it from the property. Yeah. There's a house on the other side of the schoolhouse, and Mr. Timerson, there was a man by the name of Mr. Timerson, who was a school teacher, he has since passed away, that used to protect the Hydesville property from kids going and playing on it and stuff. And in his school, in his class, he would talk about spiritualism and the property, the history of the property, because he knew John Drummond very, very well. So it's interesting how there were some people in town that wanted to destroy the Caldwaller Monument. So we took it from there to protect it and put it at the camp in Iowa. And since the park has started to build and grow and people have seen improvement, they're loving it. The town is just loving it. And the same with the schoolhouse. And as you can see, the monument was brought back and it's well protected now. So thank you, Janet, for all that you're doing for the schoolhouse and for spiritualism in general. Thank you so much.
And our little sapling tree that you were there to help put in is flourishing. So I
do have a picture of us standing by it. And that was such an incredible day.
It really was. So
thank you very much for including me in that.
I think the pioneers, you know, I hope they're a little proud. That's all we can
They are very proud, believe me.
I believe that. And you, I believe that day you also did a trance talk. I believe that was that same day.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
It was a wonderful, that first Congress, each of the Congresses have been fantastic. And the man who has now moved into that little house, I don't know how you find him, but he does watch for kids on our properties.
Yes, I had spoken with him shortly after he moved in, and he promised me he would take care of that property and make sure that no harm would come to it.
Yep, he does watch out for us, so it's a good thing. At least he's amicable to us. We could have a very different person in that property there.
Yes. Yes.
And it has been said that given the right price, he would sell to a spiritualist. So who knows in the future what might happen there too. So,
that's a nice piece of property there as well.
yes, it is. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Cozy.
We have another question from Dawn. Let me see if I can, let's see, Dawn, if you start your video, I can highlight you. Or you can just unmute yourself, I think. Can you unmute yourself? Yes, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Oh, good evening. Happy Hydesville.
Happy Hydesville.
It's late here in London, England. My question to you is, you mentioned that some bricks had been engraved by little children.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if anybody had tried psychometrizing those bricks to see if they could find out who those children might have been.
Mm. I'm sure once we begin to be able to utilize the property, you know, those kind of things are going to be happening quite a bit around there.
Yeah.
But at this point, you know, I will say this. Tracy said this. There have been times where I sit on that property where I'm just transformed somewhere else. And, you know, but it's in the burnt over district. You know, the water runs into this area, and we're in the area of Sulphur Springs. And the oracles used to sit where there were sulfur springs. And the next town over, the hospital actually advertises you are in the area of Sulphur Springs. So we are in a very unique position there. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's all coming down the road, I have to say. It's a very unique area there, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope you put it on your bucket list.
Oh, 100%. 100%. God bless you. Thank you.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I'm wondering, approximately how long do you think this project's going to take? When do you think you'd find the finish?
Based on a possible new announcement, that would be much sooner than later. So I'm not at liberty to. The other thing in that area, I have to say, as many of you know, people are on a building boom at their homes at the moment because they've been home in the pandemic. So as soon as I have that secure, so if I have to slowly raise the remainder, it's going to take me longer. With a bit of everybody's intercession on our behalf, a bit sooner. And, you know, I think the sooner it has great potential at the minute. So my wildest dream would be the end of the year.
Wow.
My possible hope is next Hydesville. Possible, because we really do want Mavis Patilla, who is very been dedicated to this project, to be there for the dedication of this building, along, of course, with Christine and anyone else who wants to be there. So, you know, it's we just keep, you know, pushing it along. So I think what we're still doing in a pandemic, the amount of money we're still raising in a pandemic, is just, you know, it's outstanding. There's no other word for it. So those are my timelines at the best. You know? If you know, there's also shortage of certain building things, you know, in certain areas because of the pandemic as well. So a lot of things depend on a lot of things. But we've waited quite a while for the architectural plans to be completed. There was a delay of 3 months with that, but we liked the company that we were using, so we waited it out. So the next piece will be the rest of the funds secured. We don't have to wait to start. We have money in the bank at the minute. But if God's going to provide the new path, you'll see a kind of spectacular announcement via Facebook if everything comes together in a good way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Such great work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
There's a lot of help from our friends, like the Joe Cocker song. We could really, I have to say, without all of them, nameless amount of mediums and people that have stepped up, you know, American and British and Swedish, you know, all different people. They have also a lot of our British mediums did lectures. Mavis Patilla has a CD that's available at the Hydesville website, Hydesville Schoolhouse website for purchase. A lot of our British mediums at the very beginning of the pandemic, we said, would you do a lecture for the fundraiser? And can we keep it and then sell it? So you'll see there's probably 15 new lectures at $20 a pop, which people forever into the future can purchase, which the money will go to the fund. You know, we're always looking at ways to continue the funding, and like I said as well, long-term funding. So, you know, it's not going to worry that it's going to be bankrupt every year into the future.
That's tremendous. That's really, it's great. I mean, it's so wonderful people coming together to preserve all of this history there in Hydesville. Now we just have to get them to rename that part of the town back to Hydesville, right?
Well, thank God the street sign's there, so that's not going anywhere. So, you know, and, you know, I really do think, I think it will become a place really, even on a greater scale. I know people come, there's no doubt about it, but I think it could become, you know, every year growing it a little bit, quite a big thing. And I have a lot of hope, and I've talked to Christine about this, a lot of hope for the future of American spiritualism. The British won't like me saying this, but, you know, it started here, it flourished here, it went to England and has really flourished in England. But I think the wave has come back to America. So I think we're in a wonderful position to grow across the country. The interest in mediumship, the openness of our religion, women in positions of leadership. I mean, there's just so much that speaks for the potential of, you know, to me, huge growth again. So it's fantastic in that way.
Well, thank you for everything you are doing. You know how I feel about you. So.
Oh, it's magical. I have to say, it's a magical journey. It's, you know, it's daunting, and it's everything else, and it's worrying. It's everything else, but that's just amazing. And, you know, like I said, the support has been there, and I think we're really just the worker bees for the spirit world and the great spirit God. You know? So it's fantastic. And luckily, I love that part. I love farmland. I love driving through that part of upstate New York. To me, you know, to leave New Jersey, you know, it's such a beautiful region. The lakes up there, and, you know, if you continue up to Lily, they're just stunning. Everything is just stunning. So, you know, maybe there'll be a Congress, you know, in this area in the future. So that'll be fantastic. So I don't know if there's any other question I can answer for anybody, but that's where we are, and it's coming along quite nicely, actually. So.
Onward, ever onward. Onward and upward. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you for including me in this, and I really do appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Our goal is to get a global calendar of all the spiritualists so we can all know what's going on and participate and just build that positive energy.
Nope. If we don't stick together, it won't succeed. We have to cross all lines now and, you know, thrive together. We certainly can do that. Well, thank you very much for having me. And I'll be seeing you. So.
Okay, well, we will let you go. I promised people we were going to give them a little comfort break now, so okay. So I think we'll do that, and I guess we will see you later.
Yes, you will.
Okay, great. Thank you
very
again.
much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just reading the little post, so appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sending our group hug out to Rev Janet Nohavec.